Hello, my follower listeners. It's been a long time I have done a podcast. Let me start by saying there is sad news right now for those who love the Queen. We all know that Prince Philip has passed away. And so, as a military man, going to Sandos military school before creating my own army, it would be disrespectful for me not to acknowledge the death of the Duke of Edinburgh.
So stand up and salute.
So stand up and salute. Mixed views, but he was a great man. He was a great man. But with no further ado, I am going back to my days at secondary school. One of the things I wanted to do in terms of this podcast is to make contact with people that I went to school with, from all walks of life. And I want to introduce you to someone who didn't know I was going to end up becoming a military man. I went to one of the best secondary schools in Nigeria. The best way to describe it is almost saying that it was the Eton of England, produced the likes of Professor Soyinka, Chinua Achebe, very, very important people. And some of these people I mentioned because they, were very influential, not just outside Nigeria, but them within the Western world. I went to a school called Government College Ibadan, and I'm part of the Old Boys Association. Even though I feel guilty because of comedy, I've not been able to, go to those meetings regularly. But I want to introduce you to one of many of my friends. We went to secondary school together. His name is Olumide Ayoola. I know some of you might not be able to pronounce that name properly. I will repeat it again. He's one of these Nigerians who hasn't got any English name. I don't know why. Maybe because he wasn't born in the UK. Who knows? Maybe he's an illegal immigrant. But he's Olumide Ayoola. He's a pilot and he's based in the United Kingdom. And I feel really privileged and honored because he's been traveling and he's just recently returned. And I told him, you have to come onto my podcast. Let's catch up. Let's find out, because I never knew he was going to end up being a pilot. And I'm sure he never knew that I was going to end up being a military man. So it's really interesting how life takes us in funny directions. And I have to say to you, my secondary school, Government College Ibadan, was more, and he might correct me, I believe was more science orientated rather than arts orientated. Most people wanted to be doctors or lawyers, even though we had the likes of Professor Soyinka and Chinua Achebe who focused on literature. But most people, genuinely, it was more of a science orientated. And I think maybe that is why I have ended up like this, because I wasn't into science. I was more into arts, more into comedy. So Olumide, how are you? It's been a long time. How are things?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. It's great to catch up with you. I've been keeping in touch with you indirectly from your Facebook posts and Twitter posts and the odd occasion when you drop into Old Boys Forum.
Yes, I must start by congratulating you, because when we talk about fellowship, you are a great leader. You pull people together. I mean, one of the things you've done successfully, and I always feel guilty because I can't seem to keep up. It's the pandemic actually that stopped me from that made me realize it just put a stop to everything.
Convenient excuse.
It's a pandemic, but I must commend you, because you the way you've because you were part of the I almost say the founding founders of the WhatsApp group. You created that group, and I can see the benefits of it in terms of fellowship and just being in touch and reminiscing in terms of the GCI days, even though Alzheimer's have set in. I can't remember everybody that went to secondary school, but it's good. And we celebrate birthdays and, great fellowship. So even though I don't respond all the time, I read those messages. But let's talk about you and your life. And before I say that, I feel really, I feel offended. Let me tell you, look at your bookcase. You don't even have any poster of me, President Obonjo, nothing at all. It's just empty with books.
They're all in the living room.
Oh,
I might show you later.
There are photos of me in the living room.
Yeah, there's a full life portrait of you.
Ah, excellent, because that's what I want in every house in the United Kingdom. Actually, that's my mission. Every home in the UK, every home around the world must have a picture of me.
Okay.
That is the beginning. So you would later on, you're going to take me to that living room. I want to see it. But I'm interested. Yes, I am definitely interested. I want to see. I want to. What are your books? What do you read?
There's everything. I think there's books from university days. There's books for my kids, and obviously there's books about flying.
Okay.
And then we have novels, and it's a bit of everything. A bit of everything.
So you are, one of the reasons why I wanted to get you here is that you're a pilot. Yeah. And I always have this. I have this dream. That I also have a plane. Air Force One, Obonjo Airlines. But I've never ever made it real. I've never ever been able to make it real. Why pilot as a profession? At what point did you realize that that's what you were going to do?
Well, I actually realized, I think I was about age 5 or age 6. It was actually a very first family trip abroad from Nigeria. And we flew from the old Lagos airport to London, but via Amsterdam on Cape. No, I'm sorry. Let me correct that. It was our first family trip abroad by plane, because a couple of years earlier we'd been on a ship that took about 2 weeks to get from Lagos to England, and another 2 weeks to get back. So we ended up only staying in England for about 2 weeks, I think. So my parents decided, all right, next time we're going to fly, because that's faster. So obviously all the kids were very excited, myself, my brother, and my little sister. I don't think we slept the night before the trip. We stayed at, we as you know, we live in Ibadan. So we drove up to Lagos the day before and stayed in the airport hotel in Lagos. And funnily enough, the airline crews also stayed in that same hotel. So the evening before, they'd seen us in the lobby checking in, or maybe in the restaurant having dinner or something. So the next day on the flight, during the flight, one of the air hostesses recognized me and said, "Hey, little boy, do you want to see the cockpit?"
Wow.
I was like, "Oh yeah, okay, let's go." So she took me into the cockpit, and I walked into this cockpit, and I saw all these buttons and all these lights, and and the clouds, and I thought, yeah, this is what I want to be. I want to be a pilot. So when I went back to my seat, I told my parents immediately, when I grow up, I want to be a pilot. And you know the typical Nigerian parents. My dad was like, yeah, whatever, yeah, I'm sure he's going to change his mind. Let's just indulge him,
Mm-hmm.
And it stayed that way as the years went by. When we were in GCI, I already knew I wanted to be a pilot.
Wow.
I'd done quite a bit of research already, and I didn't even want to go to university. I thought I'll do O levels and then straight to flying school. And in the beginning, my dad was like, yeah, okay, whatever, But as we got closer to leaving school, he started freaking out, thinking, but this guy is serious, he really doesn't want to study anymore. He wants to go flying. So then I began to get a bit of pushback, from them saying, no, it's too young to start flying now. Why don't you go and study something else? And if flying doesn't work out, you'll have something to fall back onto, blah, blah. But the big push was in GCI. There was a small group of us that were all wanted to be pilots, and we were quite nerdy about it. We were collecting brochures and flying magazines, and in the break time, you'd find us all looking through magazines and getting. So we kind of encouraged each other, and from there it grew. So cut a long story short, they convinced me to go to university, study something, at least as a sort of basis before going flying. So I studied engineering, which are the books you you noticed up there. But all the time while I was in university, that was still in my mind, that this is my dream, you know. I finished university and then tried to get into the flying, but it turned out that I had bad eyesight, and my eyesight was not good enough to become a pilot. So that was the sort of end of the dream. And that's about the time you and I reconnected around Bethnal Green. You remember when I lived in Bethnal Green, and we actually used to see you quite often. Before you became President of Obonjo. I think you were a sergeant then, Abi.
I was just a civilian.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So at that time, the dream had kind of died, which is why you also probably didn't know about it, you know, because I didn't talk about it anymore. So, and then it turned out that my parents had been wise to say, study something else, you know. So I ended up working as an engineer for different companies. But eventually I ended up at London Underground on the Jubilee Line Extension project as an engineer. And at that time, two critical things happened. One was they invented laser surgery for eyesight correction. And the second thing is that it turned out that London Underground is actually part of the civil service. Okay. And the civil service had a social club that included a flying club. So members could just go and fly leisure in the small propeller aircraft. So those two things kind of rekindled the dream. You know? Wow. I signed up straight away for the laser correction, and I joined the flying club as well. So I started flying at weekends, just leisure flying, you know, just fly from. I think there was one of the GCI All Boys meetings. Were you there in Newcastle?
Yes.
Yeah. Where I ended up coming in a little, plane. Yeah. And at that point, I was thinking I'm a little bit too old now. I was, I think, 27, and generally most pilots start between 21 and 25. I was thinking, okay, I'll just do this for leisure and not think about it as a career, until one day somebody else from the flying club persuaded me to take a day off work so we could fly to France, because he wanted to buy duty-free wine. I think he had a party coming up, so it was. So me and him got in this small plane. We took off. It was a very cloudy day. And then as we took off and climbed above the clouds, the guy turned to me and said, doesn't this beat working for a living, you know? And those words just stayed in my head, like, yeah, this is it, you know? This is work that doesn't feel like work. So from that point, I got back I got the mojo back. And followed up the dream. It's quite a long story, but
no, it is a fascinating story on so many counts, on the basis that you found out you wanted to be flying at the age of 5. Is that correct?
5 or 6, yeah.
And it's just really interesting how, and also the issues around your parents not wanting to do that. And that is more of a generation thing, because I can identify with that. Because at the age of 5, similar, I knew I was an alawada. I wanted to do comedy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I knew. It was in my DNA. There was nothing you could tell me. And I remember my late father used to tell me in those days, I remember when I was driving from Lagos to Akure, and he used to say, oh, one of the reasons Timoman like Lachi, I always want you to be with me is because you are so funny. Just what I'm saying, you're so funny.
Yeah.
But they didn't let me. They won't let. They did never ever supported me. But that was my. I know what you're talking about, because it's like a pain, like a pain that doesn't heal until you actually satisfy that need.
Exactly.
You don't feel complete. You never ever feel complete.
Yeah, you are absolutely right, and that's a typical. I think it's different now, or at least I hope it's different. But at that time, if you remember, all parents wanted their kids to be engineers, or lawyers, or doctors.
Yeah,
you know, it was such a tunnel focused expectation that they couldn't really look beyond that and say, oh, okay. Funnily enough, at the time, I said I wanted to be a pilot. And my brother, my younger brother, said he wanted to be a fireman. So you can imagine. My dad was like, what kind of children are these?
My father was a civil engineer. He went to Government College Ibadan. The first son is an architect. The second one is a town planner. The third one, late Sister Bisi, she was a doctor. So can you imagine? I want to do comedy in
exactly
in bulletin bobo we allow it babasala. But you see, I think go on.
They'll be thinking, you're going to bring the family name down.
Oh, it wasn't even bringing the family name down. They genuinely thought by taking me to GCI that I'll end up becoming a civil engineer. And I can confidently tell you, yes, I enjoyed my time at GCI, but I just didn't feel, I felt misplaced. Do you know what I'm saying? I wanted to be in the arts, in an art school, where I can express
performing arts.
Exactly. So those days in GCI was just mixed, was just really, really mixed. And there were moments of happiness and there were moments of sadness, because I just felt I wasn't in control. I'd been forced to go to this secondary school. That's why I started by saying scientists, doctors, even all the people most of the GCI boys now, they're doctors or so I just thought, nah, this is not the way. But you're right.
Yeah.
In terms of what's happening now, certainly for me, I let the children decide, because that is really, really important, because that's what defines their happiness. That's what defines their happiness for the rest of their life.
Yeah. I mean, you can imagine back then, if a child said to their parents, I want to be a footballer, can you imagine what the reaction would have been then? But now, if a child says, I want to be a footballer, go on, son, because it's not all about degrees and qualifications, that you can make a living from what is essentially a hobby. It's just whatever you're good at,
my question for you is, so when you made that decision to become a pilot and you were already a grown-up man, how did your parents react?
Do you know, I didn't tell them until I got my first job.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't tell them. It's a funny story, but it's becoming a pilot is very expensive. It's it costs about £100,000.
Really?
Right? Yeah. So I actually felt after I'd been through university as a private overseas student, paying increased fees, no grants, nothing, fully sponsored by my parents. After university, I felt a bit guilty to go back and say, okay, guys, now you have to pay $100,000 for flying school, knowing also that my brother and sister were in university, and I said the dream had kind of died at the time. So I just concentrated on being an engineer and flying whenever I could. But luckily, when I used to see you regularly, I lived in Bethnal Green. The reason you stop seeing me regularly is because I moved from Bethnal Green. I bought my first apartment, and that was in Acton Town.
Okay.
It was a small 2-bedroom apartment, that I really couldn't afford at the time, but I stretched myself to get the mortgage and everything. And in the time between buying the apartment and deciding I was gonna leave my job and go and do the flying full time, the apartment value had more than doubled.
Wow.
So in going to the flying school, I sold the apartment, paid the mortgage off, and had enough left over to pay for the flying school.
Wow.
So I didn't need to involve my parents at all in paying for it.
Okay.
So I just did that and gave them some reason for selling the apartment. Moved to Oxford, where the flying school was.
Wow.
I was there for 2 years, and then I finished at Oxford. It was just before 9/11. I think it was 2 or 3 years before 9/11. So there was already a recession starting. I can't remember now. I think maybe SARS or something. There was anyway some kind of financial dip, which meant that it was difficult to get a job straight away. So I finished the flying course and then came back and worked for a few months as an engineer, as a contractor,
So your parents were right. Something you could fall back on.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. I have to give them that. They might, force. That was very good advice. Because at that same time, the guy, my classmates in the flying school were working at places like Tesco, McDonald's, on minimum wage. But I went back as an engineering contractor on quite a good salary, So that kept me going at the time. I moved in with my brother in the meantime in East London, and kept waiting for the airline to call me up, So it took about 9 months, I think, before the call, and then the call came. And the airline I was signed up to in the flying school, it was KLM, the Dutch airline, which also happened to be the airline we traveled on that very first flight.
Oh dear. Okay.
Where I decided I wanted to become a pilot.
Wow.
So when I got the call from KLM saying, okay, you can start on I think it was 2nd of April or something. A few days before, I really had to pinch myself and think, wow, I was sitting in an office working as an engineer, and all the time I was thinking, man, from next week, I'm going to be a pilot. Wow, that's that was the moment of reality, Up till that point, it had all been an aspiration, a dream, But this was it, I'm thinking, man, no more desk, no more chair. It's going to be a completely different lifestyle. And I thought, and just in case, something, it's a more dangerous job, I better tell them now, So I called up my dad and I told him, I'm starting a new job next week. And then he said, where, what are you going to? I said, I'm going to be a pilot, I was expecting a very negative reaction, and I said to him, and he said, "Oh wow, man, you did it! This is something you've been talking about since you were 5.
Yeah.
And you've done it." And he was very happy and very proud. And he started asking me all sorts of questions about planes, about turbulence, and and then he said, "Okay, so is it British Airways or Virgin or who?" And I said, "Oh, it's KLM." And he went, "Oh, that's the airline we were on that time, and from that point on, he became very, very proud. He used to go around telling everybody,
"My son is a pilot."
Yeah, he's a pilot for KLM. So yeah, the reaction after I'd done it was fine. I'm not sure it would have been the same if I'd gone back to him and said, "Oh yeah, Daddy, can you pay for for the flying school?" And
yeah.
you know,
Fascinating story. Fascinating story. I'm really proud. I'm really proud of what you've achieved.
It's likewise you. I mean, you have to tell me your own story. You know? Yeah. Well, I remember this laugh from GCI.
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
And I also remember that you were always laughing and joking.
Yes.
Because we were in the same house. We were
yes, we were in the same house.
Remember?
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the things I do remember was I was very playful at GCI. I just genuinely was very playful. Even when I wasn't at GCI, people will invite me to parties and say, "Oh, well, Bonjo, we want you there." You know, why? Because I would always be the soul. I was playful, really playful. But I didn't plan. I never ever planned to be a comedian because I always saw myself as a naturally funny person. You know what I'm saying? Just naturally funny. Just tell whatever I need to say, do the narrative, and people will laugh. And I had no idea I was going to do this until I arrived in England. And then I saw someone called Felix Dexter.
Yeah, I know.
You know, because my parents had really imposed that fear that, look, Alawada, it's not happening. So just like you, the dream just died, just literally died, until I saw Felix Dexter at Hackney Empire. And Felix Dexter, he had this character of like a Nigerian. And I just thought, this thing is easy. I can do this. I had no idea that Olumide, that there was a technique to it. I just thought you just go there and you talk. But I wasn't brave enough, just like you. I still wasn't brave enough to take it up. I was watching comedy shows. Then in the late 90s, so it was like 10 years after, I went to someone's wedding. And when I went to someone's wedding, it was a Nigerian wedding. And the MC, you know, Nigerians now, we love to have MCs to host, you know, and the MC didn't show up. And this guy came to me and said, Oga, I know you can do this. I know you can. I know your people always want to be around you. Can you just MC this? And I just went there, Olumide, just naturally just doing my thing, 300 people, and people were screaming, "Who was this MC?" You know, I was just being myself. I didn't even know I was doing MC. I was interacting, banter. I would comment about the way people were dressed and where they're from, where they bought their shoes from, not knowing that they were enjoying the performance.
Yeah.
And there was this English guy who saw me. And then he said, "Please, who are you? Because I've been to so many Nigerian weddings and the MCs are not." And you know, with GCI now, you know, we speak with, you know, eloquence. You know, it was obvious, educated, but also funny. And he said, "Have you ever tried stand-up comedy?" I said, "What's stand-up comedy? What is stand-up comedy?" Because when we were growing up in Nigeria, I don't know about you, I never knew about the people I remember who were funny was Baba Salah, Master. I never knew about Richard Pryor. I never knew about all these other comics in those days because we weren't exposed to stand-up comedy per se. It was either music, you know, it was never ever comedy. And then he took me to a place called the Comedy Store. And I went into the Comedy Store. And when I arrived at the Comedy Store, it happened to be a night when they asked people to come on stage and perform. So they said, "Did anyone want to come on stage and perform?" The guy just said, "Go, go, go." It was a Monday night. I went there. I did 5 minutes. People were laughing. And I didn't plan anything. I just went there and I just said something and people were laughing. I said, "Yes, I am a comedian. I am ready." And what happens is when you go to places like that, there are comedy promoters who are there. And so they will give you their numbers and say, President Obonjo, come on over, come on over, come on over. In the meantime, Obonjo is a nickname that a late friend of mine gave me. Abe, you might know him, Abe Fatuga. He died.
Oh, yeah. I went to school with Abe.
Yes. Yeah. So you know. And I stayed with Abe when I came to London. And Abe.
That's when I was at Bethnal Green.
Yeah, you're in Bethnal Green and I was in Poplar.
Acme.
Yeah.
Okay.
For Poplar. And Abe saw what I didn't see in me. When I say saw, I knew I always had it, but the dream had died. But he always said to me, "Obonjo," which he gave me as a nickname, "You are wasted. You should be a public speaker. You are too funny. Don't put this to waste. Do something about it." Do you know, it was only when he died that I realized that he knew what he was talking about. And because of him, because he was a very close friend, you know, apart from just being a close friend, he was part of the family because his younger brother at the time married my sister. So I just picked up, went to this comedy store thing, and I said, I've got to leave this dream for Abe because Abe saw me as a comedian. And that's how I started. And I went to some clubs and I would die. Die means you're not doing very well because I never prepared. I just go there and I wouldn't know what I'm saying. I would do some jokes, it wouldn't work. But eventually I got better because I realized that there was a technique. However, I performed as a civilian president. And then eventually Obama came into the scene. And then when Obama came into the scene, yes, we can. And then 4 years later, you know, the Republicans were giving him a lot of problems. You know? So I said to myself, what would Obama do if he was an African president? He will become an African dictator. Reform, suspend constitution, tell the Republicans to go and fuck off, you know, and so on and so forth. So I was driving past a place in Stevenage, and it was an old military uniform. They sell military uniforms.
All right.
And I just wore this military uniform, and I felt powerful. Olumide, I felt like Incredible Hulk. So I went back to the comedy store, and I went on stage. Come and see people clapping. And you see this thing about comedy, I'm not sure if it's the same with flying, it's very, very addictive. Very, very addictive. You know, I just got consumed in it. And then I started gaining fans, people calling my president. And, you know I might be deluded, but that's how that's how we started. But it was a dream, very similar to you. It was a dream. I can confidently say to you that I am much happier that I have actually done this than not doing it at all. You know, there are some people who are stuck in the wrong professions for the rest of their lives, and they are unhappy because I have a friend who wanted to play football. He keeps talking about it, even though he's 50-something now. Those regrets are there because he never, ever was able to do what he really wanted to do.
Yeah, definitely, and probably I think we made the move about a similar age, you know, late 20s, early 30s, which comes with a lot of risk, you know.
No. The risk. Olumide, I genuinely don't know. I remember when I first introduced myself to the GCI WhatsApp group. I know some people just probably thought, or you know, there's some mental health breakdown happening somewhere. But actually, if you can identify with the fact that you have a dream, you know, and you want to explore that dream, no matter what the risks are, you will understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I understand it, but you can't avoid the fact that it was a risk, you know, because you're going from something that's pretty established. In my case, I was an engineer. I could have stayed as an engineer and risen up the ranks in the company with the ever increasing salary, and you're putting all that on the line to chase a dream. You know, there's not many people who do that. You know, and certainly in my case, there were a lot of people that on the face of it, they were like, "Oh, you want to be a pilot? Oh, nice." But I'm sure behind my back they were saying, "This guy is crazy," you know. Why, you know, why give up all this to go and chase a dream where there's no guarantee of success, you know? So it was risky, and I think a lot of people were put off by the risk, you know, because I know quite a few people who, just to get into university in Nigeria, you know, you sign up for any course, a Greek, you know, just to get into university. You know, if you couldn't make the cutoff mark for medicine or engineering, you take a Greek just to get into university, and then you finish university and you have a degree in a Greek, you know. And then, but you don't have a farm, or you don't have any, you know. So then I know quite a few people who have ended up doing what they're doing, not by design, but just by sequence, you know, they happen
My brother, look at the comedy scene in Nigeria now. Look at how big it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at how big
You
it
know,
is. Huh?
it's
Look at how
booming.
it's booming.
Yeah.
To the extent they're coming out of the country, traveling all over Europe, traveling everywhere. And when you mix it with the Afrobeat, hello.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I know you had Dele on one of your previous podcasts, but that's, you know, that's entertainment and show business and comedy and to a certain extent theater and performing arts are now all kind of there's comedians just like you. When is President Obonjo going to release his first record? Because now I see comedians also releasing records and acting in movies. You know,
exactly.
Yeah, so I even think that to describe yourself as a comedian is becoming a little bit old-fashioned now.
Yeah, it's more of an entertainer.
Yeah, you're a performer. You're an all-rounder. You know. So,
but let's go back to the flying. So,
okay.
What is your how often do you fly, and what are the challenges? Because you're a married man with children. So how often do you fly?
At the moment, it's about 3 times a month.
Okay.
Yeah, because I fly long haul, so that's intercontinental, worldwide.
Okay.
And the way it works, depending where you've been, how many time zones you've crossed, and how many days you were wherever you've been, that determines how many days you're off when you get back home.
Wow.
Right. So it's a kind of a there's a field called aeromedical studies.
Okay.
And that studies how your body reacts to time zone changes.
Okay.
And there's a thing called the biorhythm.
Wow.
Your body's used to you going to bed at 10 o'clock each night, you know?
Yeah.
The day you go to bed at 4 a.m., your body is still going to try to wake you up at the same time you would have woken up if you'd gone to bed at 10. So those kind of things, you need time to recover from that. So because I fly ultra long haul, I just came back from Japan now, which is a 8-hour time difference with the UK. So if you imagine, 2 days ago, I was going to bed at 1 p.m. London time.
Okay.
You know, and then getting up at 11 p.m. on the same day to work. So because of that, I have 10 days off now after that flight. But it's not like that for everybody. The people who fly shorter flights, for example, domestic, which in Europe, domestic pretty much means within Europe, not within England. Typically, they would fly 4 or 5 days a week, you know, and in each day they do maybe 2, 3, or 4 short flights, 1-hour flights, 2-hour flights. But I do 1 12-hour flight, stay there 1 or 2 nights, and then another 12-hour flight back, and then I'm off for about 10 days. So it varies. If I fly to Lagos, for example, that's a short flight for us. That's the shortest flight I do, 6 hours. Stay 1 night in Lagos, 6 hours back, then I'm only off for 3 days.
Wow.
So
Go on.
Yeah, so I can't give you a fixed pattern, but that's the shortest. And Japan was one of the longest. So
it's really interesting. So you know what I didn't consider, and I should have thought about it, is that even if you, as a passenger, if you go on a long flight, you suffer from jet lag, don't you? So that happens to you guys, where it's even more complex than that.
Yeah, it's more complex than that, but from experience, you learn to manage it.
Okay.
You know, and there's no one cure fits all. Personally, I try to keep to the time zone at home.
Okay.
So I leave my watch on UK time.
Mm-hmm.
And then bizarrely, I would think, oh man, I have to go to bed, and it's 1 p.m. in the afternoon, but it's already 10 p.m. over there, you know. But by doing that, that reduces the effect of the jet lag when I get back. But I have colleagues who switch their watches as soon as we land onto local time, you know, and then they stay awake until 10 p.m. local time or whatever the local time is.
So what's it like flying the plane with so many people on it? Do you feel any sense of responsibility, or was it just fun, even though it's a career? But yeah.
Well, yeah, it's fun. It's a hobby. I tell people, and we often talking to other pilots, you know, we say, man, if only the company realized that we would do this for free,
okay.
You know, yeah, you know, they give you a $30 million plane and they give it to you and say, okay, take it to Japan, you know, and yeah, most people who end up becoming pilots are so enthusiastic and so driven to become pilots that it's not really about the money or the, I mean, obviously you need money to survive and pay your bills and everything, but it's the job more than the benefits that count. So that's the first thing. It's fun, you know, the moment, even when I'm at home here and I hear a plane going overhead, you know, before I know it, I'm like looking up. Yeah, it's just still the same as I was as a 5-year-old kid. Let me tell you a fun story. Remember when we were growing up in Ibadan, we had all those small planes flying overhead, the planes that went from Lagos to Ibadan. So yeah. I used to look up at them, and because they look so small, yeah. Obviously it's stupid now, but when you're 5-6 years old, you're looking up and you're looking at the shape of the plane, and I'm thinking, how can anybody be in that small thing, you know? And I'm thinking, oh, it's probably just one guy lying down with his feet up at the back. Yeah, you know, that you have to. Yeah. So that kind of childhood thing, you know, when I look up at a plane now, I start imagining, where's it going? You know, I wonder what they're doing. Are they serving dinner or watching movies? So it's still fascinating. As far as the sense of responsibility, yeah, obviously, but with the training, that becomes almost routine. You know, nobody has to tell you, oh, you have 400 people in the back, because everything you're trained to do has already taken into account that you have those 400 people. So you have to be as safe as possible. So just by doing things, by following your standard procedures, you're already carrying out your responsibility to those people. So it's not something that automatically comes to mind. Obviously, as passengers, it becomes more passenger comfort. You know, trying to avoid turbulence, avoiding bad weather, trying to make the flight as smooth as possible. You know, that's more what's at the front of your mind, rather than, oh man, I have all these people, they're all relying on me. You know, but that's what you've been trained to do. So if you do it properly, then you're already carrying out your responsibility.
You know what's really interesting into that I didn't bear in mind is how much the plane is. You said 30 million pounds or $30 million. Wow.
Yeah, or more. Or more.
Wow.
Yeah.
And in terms of countries, because there are 192 countries in the world, but how many have you flown to?
Well, I haven't been counting. But I've been to every continent except Australia and Antarctica.
Wow, wow. And
Yeah,
when you arrive at these continents or countries, do you ever get a chance to go sightseeing or? Yeah, okay, cool. So wow.
We have to, again, from the aeromedical perspective.
Yeah.
Wherever you fly to, the law, it's the worldwide law, is that you have to have a rest period that's at least as long as the flight.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's to stop, unscrupulous companies from making you fly 12 hours.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
After two-hour break, you have to come back. And then obviously airlines have different schedules. So it's some places you don't fly to every day. Some places are once a week.
Okay.
Yeah, for example, or twice a week. So if a flight was once a week, let's say, for example, you flew to Sydney, and the airline flies once a week. You arrive in Sydney, and then you need at least, that's a 22-hour flight or something, I think. You need at least 22 hours rest before you can fly back.
Okay.
Yeah. If the airline keeps a plane on the ground for 22 hours, they're losing money. Yeah. Every time a plane is on the ground, it's losing money. So for them, it's better to have another crew already in Sydney that brings the plane straight back. Yeah. And then you stay in Sydney till the next plane comes into Sydney, which could be a week later.
Wow.
So de facto, you have a week in Sydney.
Wow.
Yeah. So the schedule varies from place to place. Some places we have one night, like in Lagos, because we fly every day. Some places like Osaka, we fly 3 times a week. So I had 2 nights over there. And normally that would be time where you could go out sightseeing and do whatever you want, because it's free time. It's your time. But with COVID now, everything has changed. In most places we fly to, you either have to stay in your room or you have to stay in the hotel.
Okay.
You can leave your room, but you can't leave the hotel.
Okay, I can't leave the hotel.
Yeah. So we've gone now from all of us wanting to spend as long as possible in all these places to us now wanting to
get out
as little time as possible. So it's funny how COVID has changed the scenario.
It's changed the whole scenario. Okay, yeah. So I remember seeing, and this is when I knew you became a pilot. I remember seeing a photo of you with General Olusegun Obasanjo.
Yeah, another president, your colleague president.
My colleague president. So the question for me is when you're on the plane, are you told who the important dignitaries are?
Yeah, we are. We have a list. We have a list of all the passengers on the flight.
Okay. So what was it like when you found out General Olusegun Obasanjo was on your plane?
Well, I met him in London.
Okay.
I work for KLM, so all my flights start and finish in Amsterdam.
Okay.
But it's my choice to live in London. So I commute to work.
Okay.
In the same way as somebody would commute from Hemel Hempstead to London. I commute from London to Amsterdam.
Okay, before you catch the plane. Okay, cool.
Before then I fly the plane. So on London to Amsterdam, I go as a passenger, but in uniform, and we don't have to pay for the tickets. It's free of charge. So what happened on that particular day was I got to the airport as usual and checked in for the flight as a passenger, right? And then at the gate, one of the people at the gate said to me, "Oh, the flight's going to be a little bit delayed. because somebody has to come from the Queen's Lounge. All right. The Queen's Lounge is a separate terminal at Heathrow for VIPs. You know,
yeah, I've been through it.
Yeah. I'm sure Lafta Republic has a permanent con. Okay, so you know where I'm talking about. Yeah. All right. So they said some guy has to come from there. You know, so we're going to be about 10 minutes delayed. And then the guy said to me as a joke, he said, "Here, you might know him. I can't even say the name, you know." And then I saw Olumide Ayoola. I said to him, "That's the former president." This was at that time. Goodluck Jonathan was president. I said, "Oh, that's the former president of Nigeria. Are you sure?" And he said, he said, "I don't know the bloke." So I said, "Okay. We'll see when he comes on board, you know." So I went on the plane with VIPs. They make them board last,
okay,
for security reasons, and so they don't keep them waiting.
You keep telling me as if I don't know. I know.
Yeah,
I know. But mine is true. Mine is through EasyJet. I've been through EasyJet.
Okay, yeah, well, I'm telling your viewers, not you.
Yes, definitely.
You know the protocol. So I sat down in the business class on an aisle seat, you know, and then in came President Obonjo and his personal assistant, you know, and funnily enough, he sat across from me on the aisle, you know. And then we took off, and then I was thinking, oh, should I say something to him or you know? So I said, good afternoon, sir, and blah, blah, you know. And at that point, he hadn't clocked that I was a Nigerian, you know. So I said to him, "Oh, are you traveling to Lagos?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Oh, I'm going to be your pilot on the flight from Amsterdam to Lagos." And then I introduced myself to him and said, "Oh, my name is Olumide Ayoola." And then he said, which Ayoola?" And I said, "Oh, from Ibadan." And he said, "Oh, I know your dad." And I said, "Oh, so you're a pilot. That's good. That's good." Then he said to me, "We need people like you to come back to Nigeria, you know." You know. So I said to him, "Oh, okay, well, we'll talk more about it on the flight to Lagos." So then we got to Amsterdam, and he went off again to the VIP lounge in Amsterdam, which I'm sure you know as well. And I went off to do the flight preparation, and then I told the rest of my colleagues, they already had a passenger list, and it just says VIP. And then I said to him, "Well, this is no ordinary VIP. This is the ex-president of Nigeria." So they were all excited and looking forward to meeting him anyway. So we got on the flight to Lagos. And at that point, they already knew who he was. And he was also very jolly and very interactive, you know. And nearly everybody on the flight to Lagos knew he was on board at that point. So then there were people coming from economy class to first class. But yeah, I'm not kidding. During the flight, with proposals, with, you know, say, you know. So the senior cabin crew member came to me and said, "I don't know, is it okay to let people go to him, or should I stop them, or whatever, you know?" So I said, "Okay, I will ask him, you know." So I came out of the cockpit and went to him and said, "Are these people disturbing you or whatever?" And he said, "No, let them come, you know." It's okay.
Enjoys it.
Yeah. He was obviously enjoying the adoration. And so that continued for about 3 hours. And then he had his dinner. And then he came into the galley, you know, and he was laughing and joking with the stewardesses and everything. Then one of the stewardesses came in and said, oh, he wants to talk to you, you know. So he came into the cockpit, and that's when we took the photographs, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he kept us entertained for about 2 hours, you know, talking. Yeah. It was a very, very, very enjoyable flight.
So, so your plane is it a Boeing plane? What is it? What planes do you fly?
At that time, that was an Airbus 330, but now I'm on the Boeing. Dream.
So, excuse my ignorance. I don't know because I don't really have a plane.
Yeah.
But Air Force One, can you fly Air Force One?
Air Force One is a Boeing.
Okay.
It's a Boeing 747.
Yeah.
So it's from the Boeing family.
Okay.
If you ask me, I can fly it. If you ask the regulatory authorities, I can't fly it until I go on a course. Our licenses are specific to one airplane type.
Okay.
But the underlying theory and principles are the same for all planes.
So it's almost like saying you can drive a car, but you can't drive a truck because you need a different license.
No, it's like saying you can drive Nissan, or you can drive a Nissan Micra, but you can't drive a Mercedes.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's not just about the driving, the steering and the accelerator and the brake. When you drive a Nissan Micra, the way we fly planes, you need to know everything about the Micra, how the electric circuits work, how the fuel system works, how the air conditioning works. So it's not just about the flying. You also have to know everything technically about the plane. So that's why we're restricted to one type. The flying itself, you know, the turning left, turning right, climbing, descending, that's the same for all planes, but the systems are different. So you're restricted to one type on your license at one time. You can switch from one type to another, but then you have to do a thing called a conversion course.
Okay. Wow.
You know, so when I switched from the Airbus to the Boeing, I had to do a conversion course. That's like 2 months.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, is your voice different talking to me compared to when you're on the plane? Because I have something I'd like you to do for me, if it's possible. Because I have this dream that I am, you know, I'm on Air Force One or Obonjo Airlines, just like the Trump plane. Actually, I have designed a plane just like Donald Trump.
Logo.
Yeah, logo and everything. And some people actually think it's real. They think Obonjo Airlines. What's your pilot voice? Is there a?
There's no pilot voice.
It's just speaking to a microphone, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the speaker system that makes your voice sound different.
Okay.
But when we speak, it's the same your normal voice. Obviously, because you're speaking into a microphone, you have to be quite. You have to pronounce words carefully and quite clearly.
Okay, so you're the pilot of Lafta Republic Airlines.
All right.
Yeah. So we're on the plane. Welcome the passengers of Lafta Republic Airlines.
Okay, and where are we flying to?
You're flying to my country called Baghdad, state capital, from London to Baghdad.
Baghdad.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, then it would be something like, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome aboard this Lafta Republic Boeing 777 to Baghdad in the Lafta Republic. The flight time is going to be about 3 hours and 20 minutes, and we expect a smooth flight for most of the route, except just before landing when there might be some turbulence due to strong winds. we'll come back to you and give you an update just before arrival. But in the meantime, please make yourselves comfortable. Hope you enjoy the flight, and would like to extend a special welcome on board today to our VIP passenger, the President of Lafta Republic, President Obonjo. Happy to have you with us, and wish you a pleasant flight.
I don't think you know what you've done to me with that. I'm going to get myself a plane. Look, Olumide, it has been really fantastic to talk to you, and I'm really grateful for spending well over, I think you've beaten the record. We've spoken for well over 1 hour, 13 minutes. Just
really?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like that at all.
Honestly, it doesn't feel like that. But look, it's been fascinating just hearing your story, and I wish you well and continued success. I shall share this with the GCI old boys. Who knows, maybe some of them will come. Maybe I'll be able to attract a doctor to come and talk to
you. I can recommend a few.
Yeah, recommend a few. Someone who has a sense of humor and will get it. But on a serious note, because I know you've only just come back, and so I'm really grateful for your time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and you owe me now a return. So I have to interview you on my video blog. I have to start a video blog as well.
No, honestly, it's really this podcast started as a result of the pandemic. I had to find other ways of getting my message across, but also just keeping in touch with people. And it's just really amazing how when I talk to people, because it's not scripted, as you know, it's just free flowing. And the things that people tell me, you know, I told you about Dele now. You heard Dele's story. I didn't even know Dele's father was assassinated, but he shared it with me on that day, and we just went on and how he met Fela. There are really some really interesting stories to hear, you know, and you don't have to be a celebrity. For me, the title of this podcast has to be Chasing Your Dreams. It has to be about chasing your dreams. It's about, you know, resilience. It's about believing that you will meet that dream, no matter whatever your parents say. And if it's your calling, it will happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because you had obstacles along the way, your parents not supporting you, your eyesight, the funding, but you know, God made a way one way or the other, and look at you, you've done it. And for me, I'm hoping that it will inspire other people who listen to this to say, because as far as I'm concerned, even though we're over 50, people can still chase their dreams. Do you understand what I'm saying? You know, they still can chase their dreams. It's not a case of Moses who didn't get to the promised land. You just have to keep at it. And I know there are lots of people who still want to do things. They still are thinking about, and are saying, oh, maybe I'm too old now. Maybe there's not, you know, because so far you still have life. You're still alive and kicking. I don't see any reason why you can't explore those things.
No, I agree with you completely. And like I mentioned, there's the risk sometimes puts people off, you know. And my advice would be, you only live once, you know, take the risk. Take the risk. If it doesn't work out, at least you tried. You know?
Olumide, you know, there's a saying, I think there's a saying that I don't know who said it. I'm trying to remember. It's better to try dying than not to try at all.
Yeah, exactly.
It's better to find your voice than not have a voice. You know, those things are really, really important. And you know,
yeah, because now, you know, almost every week I come across somebody who says, you know what, and I wanted to be a pilot too, you know. And to me, it doesn't really resonate, you know. If somebody said to me, you know, I wanted to be a pilot, I went to the flying school, but I didn't have the money for it, then I think at least you tried. You know, but there's no point a doctor saying to me, you know, I wanted to be a pilot, or, you know, I'm like, okay, so what do you want me to say? Like, sorry, or congratulations, or what, you know? If you wanted to do it, then either tell me you tried but didn't succeed, or just saying I wanted to do it. Yeah, I wanted to go to the moon, you know. It's not really
yeah. So my final question to you, because I was going to end it, but you've raised a very important point about chasing your dreams. But just very briefly, is it too late for anyone over a certain age to want to become a pilot? Is there a qualifying age limit?
No, there's no qualifying age limit. The upper age limit is I think 65.
Wow.
Yeah, but well, let me qualify that. There's no age limit to getting a pilot's license up until 65. Over 65 is possible if you can get the medical. We are not, apart from the flying license, we have medical checks every year, which you have to pass. So that's one of the risks of the profession, is that you're only guaranteed your job on your profession until your next medical. Yeah. You might go for a medical and they find something and they say, oh, sorry, that's it, you know. So it could end abruptly. You can't, you don't take it for granted. You know, you go year to year. So 65 is the official age limit for getting a license. That's one thing. The more difficult thing is the possibility of getting hired by a company, which decreases as your age goes up. Because like I mentioned to you, the basic training costs about £100,000. After the airline employs you, they then have to train you on that specific Nissan Micra, or whatever type of plane it is. So that's another 2 or 3 months of training in a simulator that costs £10 million or whatever, you know. So they're investing a lot of money in training you, right? And they do that with the long-term view that you're going to return that investment by being a pilot for them for the next 20 years, 25 years. So if you turn up as a 60-year-old, there are very few companies that are going to invest that amount in you, knowing that in 5 years you have to retire. So in terms of flying, getting a license, flying small planes, doing it for fun, for recreation, the age limit is your retirement age. And not everybody has to be an airline pilot, you know. I had so much fun flying before I was an airline pilot. Like I told you, I used to take days off work and fly to Paris, to France. I took a friend of ours, Jima. I took him flying to that Newcastle GCI OBA meeting, you know. I used to take guys, you know, and say, oh, let's fly here, let's fly there. You know, that's also fun. Even now when we fly to the Caribbean, for example, and we have to stay there 4 days, you know. We rent a small plane and fly from island to island. I went with a friend of mine. We flew all around the USA, just the two of us in a small Cessna. We spent 2 weeks just flying from city to city, Grand Canyon to Las Vegas, to Houston, to Bermuda, you know, everywhere. So that's fun as well. It's not only airline flying. There's all kinds of flying that's fun. And
so I could get a license and get a small plane, name it Obonjo, and you know.
Definitely, and then fly it around your estate.
Look, I've taken a lot of your time. Olumide, thank you so much. Viewers and listeners, this has been a fantastic podcast interview. I have thoroughly enjoyed myself catching up with my old schoolmate, and he's given me an idea that I should also chat with some of my other old schoolmates with different professions. I know I probably would get a doctor because, well, we can learn some things about, medicine as well. So it's a good way. So Olumide, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And Oshegon, thank you so much.
Thank you, President.
Thank you.
I'm loyal.
Thank you.